Hey, welcome back. Before we start today's lesson, let's take 30 seconds to recap what we learned last time. Last class we covered 3 key things. First, money flow simplifies into 3 buckets: income, expenses, and savings. The formula is simple. Income minus expenses equals what you actually save. Second, a healthy split is the 50-30-20 rule. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% absolutely must go to savings and investments. Third, the most effective way to save is the account split method. On payday, automatically split your paycheck into 3 accounts so you save before you spend, not after. Great, so now you're saving steadily. But here's the next question. This money you've saved up, what's the very first step you should do with it? The answer is: first, build an emergency fund. Welcome to Lesson 3, the emergency fund. Today we're talking about a concept most people skip, but it's actually super important. Let me ask you a question first. Imagine you've started investing and your stocks are doing great. Then one day, your company suddenly lays you off. Or a family member lands in the ER. Or your car breaks down on the highway and needs major repairs. At that moment, where's your money? If all of it is tied up in stocks, you only have 3 choices. Forced to sell stocks at a loss, rack up credit card debt on an installment plan, or borrow from family and friends. Every single one hurts. Today, I'll show you how to use one pool of cash to block this risk completely. Okay, let's define the term first. An emergency fund, in simple words, is this: cash set aside for unexpected events that you can access anytime. 2 key phrases: unexpected and anytime. It's different from your savings goals. Savings goals are money with a clear purpose. Like a home down payment, a vacation fund, or a down payment for a new car. It's also different from your investment money. Investment money is what you plan to park for 5 or 10 years, letting it grow slowly. An emergency fund is a third kind of money. It just sits there. You barely notice it exists. But when you lose your job, get sick, or get into an accident, it immediately jumps out to catch you. My favorite analogy. An emergency fund is your financial safety net. Walking a tightrope feels stable until you slip. Whether there's a net below you makes a huge difference. So the first key concept. An emergency fund is not there to make money. Its job is to keep you from collapsing. You might be wondering. Okay, so how much money do I actually need to save? The widely accepted answer in personal finance is 6 months of living expenses. Why 6 months? Let me show you 3 real numbers that make it click. First, according to U.S. Department of Labor statistics, the average unemployed worker takes about 20 weeks to find their next job. That's roughly 4 to 5 months. Second, from the day you get the offer to the day your first paycheck hits the bank, add another month. So from job loss to getting paid again, the median is about 5 to 6 months. That's why 6 months became the standard answer. It covers the worst-case timeline for the vast majority of people. Some will ask, what about 3 months? It's possible, but tight. If you're single, no kids, living with family, 3 to 4 months might get you through. What about 12 months, isn't that safer? In theory, yes, but there's a cost. Parking too much cash means a large sum is sitting in a low-interest account long-term. Money that could have been invested and grown. 6 months is the sweet spot between risk and return for most people. But if you're a freelancer, self-employed, or the sole breadwinner, stretching to 9 or 12 months will let you sleep much better at night. Okay, the formula is dead simple. Monthly essential expenses times 6. Pay attention. I said essential expenses. Not your salary. Not your total spending. These are very different numbers. What counts as essential? It's what you absolutely must pay each month even if you lose your job. Things to include: rent or mortgage, utilities, basic groceries, commuting costs, health insurance, and basic phone and internet. Things not to include: vacations, eating out, Netflix subscriptions, new clothes, the gym, and hobbies. When you lose your job, you'll naturally cut these. You won't die without them. Let me walk through an example. Amy earns $4,000 a month. Her total spending is about $3,500. She saves $500. But when she lists just the essentials: rent $1,200. Groceries $600. Transportation $200. Utilities and phone $200. Insurance $300. Total, about $2,500. So her emergency fund target is $2,500 times 6. That's $15,000. See the difference? She doesn't need to save 4,000 times 6, which would be 24,000. Because 1,500 of her spending is discretionary. Money she won't spend if she's unemployed. This calculation can cut your emergency fund target by about 1/3. Which means you can start investing much sooner. You might still be thinking, is it really that dramatic? What actually happens if I skip the emergency fund? Let me show you 3 real scenarios. Scenario 1. Bob put all $50,000 of his savings into stocks. Then his company laid him off. He had to sell stocks to cover rent and living expenses. But the market happened to be in a downturn. His $50,000 position could only be liquidated for $35,000. To survive, he was forced to lock in a $15,000 loss at the bottom. Scenario 2. Alice's mom was hospitalized unexpectedly. The bill was $8,000. Alice had no emergency fund, so she put it on a credit card with a 24-month installment plan. At a 15% annual rate, she paid nearly $1,200 in extra interest. Interest she never had to pay. Scenario 3. Kevin's car was in an accident. Major repairs cost $4,000. He took out a personal loan at 8%. On the surface, that rate sounds reasonable. But this loan gets reported to credit bureaus. When he applies for a mortgage in the future, lenders will mark his score down. Did you notice? What these 3 people have in common is this. They didn't lose money on the accidents themselves. They lost money on not having cash. Getting laid off is bad luck. But being forced to take a $15,000 loss on stocks is not inevitable. A hospital visit is bad luck. But $1,200 in extra interest is not inevitable. A car accident is bad luck. But a credit score hit is not inevitable. The real value of an emergency fund is this. When bad things happen, you don't have to make forced, bad decisions. Okay, you know you need 6 months. You know how to calculate it. Now the most important question. Where should you keep this money? It needs to meet 4 criteria at the same time. First, accessible anytime. Ideally, one tap and the money is in your account. Number 3-day or 7-day waiting period. Second, principal absolutely protected. Whenever you pull it out, it must be at least what you put in, or more. It can't shrink because of market swings. Third, earns at least some interest. This isn't where you get rich, but at minimum it should push back against inflation. You can't let it lose to inflation entirely. Fourth, zero mental effort. When you urgently need cash, you don't want to figure out how to sell or redeem something first. What meets all 4? The answer is a high-yield online savings account. In the US and many other markets, online banks like Ally, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, SoFi, and Discover offer around 4 to 5% annual yield on regular savings. That's dozens of times higher than a traditional bank's 0.5%. And transfers are near instant. Note that some accounts have balance caps. Like, the high rate applies only to the first $10,000. If your emergency fund exceeds the cap, just open 2 accounts at different banks. What to absolutely avoid? Stocks, ETFs, crypto, or any kind of mutual fund. When you need cash most urgently, these are often exactly when they're losing value. You'd be forced to sell at the worst possible time. That completely defeats the purpose of an emergency fund. Finally, I know you might be thinking, $15,000 or $20,000 sounds like it'll take forever to save. It's not as slow as you think. 3 methods. Most people finish in 12 to 18 months. Method 1. Automatic forced transfer. Remember the account split method from last lesson? You used to send 20% to savings and investments. Now split that 20% in 2. For the first 12 months, route 15% of it into your emergency fund. Once the target is hit, redirect the full amount to investments. Method 2. All windfalls go straight in. Bonuses, tax refunds, rebates, cash gifts from relatives, prize money. Any money that wasn't in your normal budget. Don't spend a cent, pour all of it into the emergency fund. A single bonus alone can knock off 1 or 2 months of the target for many people. Method 3. Visualize your progress. Grab a piece of paper or use your phone's notes. Draw a progress bar from 0 to your goal. Update it once a month. Sounds old school, right? But behavioral economics research consistently shows this. People hit goals 3 times more often when they can see their progress. Combine these 3 moves. In just 12 to 18 months, you'll have your first real emergency fund. From that moment on, you've truly earned the right to start investing. Okay, that wraps up Lesson 3. Today you learned what an emergency fund is, why 6 months, how to calculate your own target, where to keep it, and how to fill it up quickly. Before we wrap up, I want you to do 3 small exercises. Things you can finish this week. First, open the expense list you made last class and draw a box around just the essentials. Rent, food, transportation, basic phone and internet, insurance. Second, multiply that number by 6. Write it on paper or save it as your phone lock screen. That's your emergency fund target. Third, if you don't have a high-yield online savings account yet, dedicated to your emergency fund, open one this week. Most banks let you open an account in 5 minutes right from your phone. Do these 3 things, and you'll have built your own financial safety net. Once that net can support you, you've earned the right to take the next step. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about the most magical tool in the entire world of investing: compound interest. I'll show you a formula even Einstein admired. It's called the Rule of 72. In just 10 seconds, it lets you estimate how long any sum of money takes to double. If today's lesson helped, don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell. See you in the next class.